Okay, rational equations. So we just dealt with rational expressions like adding and subtracting and multiplying, simplifying, dividing, all the good stuff. So now we're getting to equations where we actually have to solve these out. Okay, and let's get going on this. So a rational equation is any equation that contains at least one rational expression. So 4 over x minus 4 equals x plus 1 over 9 is an example of a rational expression. And there's a couple different methods to solving this. I'm just going to go through them as we do this. Okay, so first example, we have 7 over x minus 6 equals 4 over x. Always start with writing the restrictions. Now, a restriction is what is going to make the denominator equal 0. Because if you think back, well, I guess not think back, but you can't divide something by 0. So say you had like a piece of pizza, and it's pepperoni pizza because that's the best pizza. Just kidding, that's a lie. I don't really like pepperoni pizza, but so it's this pepperoni pizza that's drawn really ugly. You cannot divide this into 0 pieces, right? You cannot divide it by 0 because there's one piece right there, and there will always be at least one piece. You can't divide it by 0. So that's just a little explanation as to why we can't divide by 0. But the restrictions are what's going to make the denominator equal 0. So here, in this case, it's going to be x cannot equal 6 and x cannot equal 0. And I'll show you how I got those. So that x minus 6, I just said x minus 6, and that cannot equal 0. And I just need to get x by itself, so I'm going to add that 6 over. And you get x cannot equal 6. Then from this piece right here, you get x cannot equal 0. Okay. Now we have our restrictions. That's the very first step every single time. Now we're going to use the proportions method here. Since we have one fraction on each side of the equation, I'm just going to cross multiply this. So I have 7 times x equals 4 times x minus 6. Distribute that 4 in and you get 7x equals 4x minus 24. And then we're just solving this for x. So I'm going to subtract that 4x, and you get 3x equals negative 24. Divide by 3, x equals negative 8. Now you always have to check that with your restrictions. Negative 8 is not 6 or 0, so that works. Okay, let's look at this one. So we have 3 over a minus 8 equals 7 over 2a plus 1. We have to write our restrictions. A cannot equal 8, and a cannot equal negative 1/2. Now, remember to get those restrictions, I'm going to say that a minus 8 cannot equal 0. Add the 8 over. So a cannot equal 8, which is where that one came from. Then we have 2a plus 1 cannot equal 0. Subtract that 1. So 2a cannot equal 1. Divide by 2. So a cannot equal negative 1/2. Oh, that should have been a negative 1. Okay, so you get those by setting the denominators so they cannot equal 0. Okay, once we have our restrictions, we're going to cross multiply this. So you get 3 times 2a plus 1 equals 7 times a minus 8. So that's 6a plus 3 equals 7a minus 56. Solve that for a. Subtract the 6a over, so you get 3 equals a minus 56. Add that 56 to the other side, and you get a equals 59. Okay, if I lost you right there, I'll go through it real quick. So you get 6a plus 3 equals 7a minus 56. So I subtracted the 6a first, and that's where I got 3 equals a minus 56. Add the 56 over. So a equals 59. Okay? Let's go through this one. So my restriction here are r cannot equal 1 and r cannot equal 0. I'm going to cross multiply this. So you get r squared equals 4 times r minus 1, which is r squared equals 4r minus 4. Then we're going to subtract that over. So you get r squared minus 4r plus 4 equals 0. Because whenever you have a squared term, you have to get everything to one side and factor that down. So now we're going to factor that. That factors to r minus 2 and r minus 2. So r equals positive 2. Because you set both of those equal to 0, r equals positive 2. Okay, let's look at this one. So we have m plus 3 over 3 equals 8 over m minus 2. I forgot my restriction. Of course I did. Don't forget your restriction, okay? I'm very notorious for forgetting my restrictions. Don't forget yours. So my restriction is m cannot equal 2. That's going to go away because I can't figure out how to get it to stay, but that's your restriction, okay? We're going to cross multiply this. Oh, look, I did it. Cross multiply, you get m plus 3, m minus 2 equals 24. We're going to multiply that out, so you get m squared minus 2m plus 3m minus 6 equals 24, which is m squared plus m minus 6 equals 24. Subtract that 24. M squared plus m minus 30 equals 0, which is going to be m plus 6 and m minus 5. So m equals negative 6 and m equals positive 5. And I just got those from setting m plus 6 equal to 0, m minus 5 equal to 0. So I subtract the 6, so m equals negative 6. Add the 5, so m equals 5. Cool? Maybe. You can do examples E and F. Those are the answers you should get. So negative 6 and 4 and negative 9/2 and 2. So if you only have one fraction on both sides, you want to cross. Oh, yeah. So if you have one fraction on both sides, always just cross multiply them. Okay? Now let's get into some examples where we're not cross multiplying because we have more than one fraction on both sides. So we have 4 over r squared equals 1 over 4 plus 2 over r squared. Now my restriction is r cannot equal 0. And we have more than one fraction, so we're going to use the least common denominator. So I'm going to look at my denominators here. I have r squared, I have 4, and I have r squared. So I'm just going to write those all out. Now, we're going to look at the numbers first. The only number I have here is 4. So that's the only number I have to deal with. Now I'm going to look at the variables, and I have r squared. And that encompasses all of those. So 4r squared is going to be my least common denominator. And I'm going to multiply that to each fraction. I know it's going to be a lot of numbers and stuff to write out, but you have to do it. Okay, there's no shortcuts here. I want you guys to write this out every single time. I can put those over 1 to help a little bit. So I have r squared over 1, 4r squared over 1 times 4 over r squared equals 4r squared over 1 times 1/4 plus 4r squared over 1 times 2 over r squared. Now I can start canceling some stuff. So I'm going to look at that fraction first. Those r squareds cancel. This one, the 4's cancel. That last one, the r squareds cancel. So I'm left with 4 times 4 equals r squared times 1 plus 4 times 2. So you get 16 equals r squared minus 8, or plus 8. I'm going to subtract that 8 over, so you get r squared equals 8. Square root both sides, so you get r equals plus or minus the square root of 8. Okay, whenever you take a square root, you have to do plus or minus. Let's look at this example. So I have 1 over 2x equals 1 over 4 minus 1 over x. Always distribute the subtraction sign, okay? This entire year, if there's a subtraction sign, distribute that dang subtraction sign, okay? So this becomes negative 1 over x. Now I need my restriction, which is x cannot equal 0. And I'm going to find my common denominator. So I have 2x, I have 4, and I have x. So I'm going to look at my numbers first. I have 2 and 4, which 4 goes into both of those. Or 2 and 4 both go into 4. I'm going to look at my variables. I just have x and x, so that's just going to be 4x. Okay, because we need to find something that will end up canceling everything out. I'm going to multiply 4x to each fraction. I can put those over 1, so I have 4x times 1 over 2x equals 4x times 1/4 plus 4x times negative 1 over x. That first one, the 4 and the 2 cancel, leaving me 2 on top, and those x's cancel. That second one, the 4's cancel. The third one, the x's cancel. So I'm left with 2 times 1 equals x times 1 plus 4 times negative 1, which is 2 equals x minus 4. Add that 4 over, so x equals 6, which is not my restriction, so we're good. Okay? We're going to get a little bit trickier here, not too bad though. So in the bottom, notice how that a squared minus a minus 30 is not completely factored. We can factor that. So that's going to be a minus 6, a plus 5. That's how a squared minus a minus 30 factors. Now I need to find my common denominator. Oh, first I need to write my restrictions. Sorry. So a cannot equal 6, a cannot equal negative 5. Now I need to find my common denominator. So that's going to be a minus 6 and a plus 5. Because we can write this out if we need to. So we have a minus 6, a plus 5. Then we just have a plus 5. Then we have a minus 6, a plus 5. Okay, and then I have a highlighter here. So these a minus 6s there, that takes care of that one. A plus 5s, that takes care of that part. Okay? So that's my common denominator. That's what I'm going to multiply to each one. I know it's a lot of stuff to write out, but I promise if you write it out, you will not miss these problems. Okay, I'm going to put those over 1. So I have a minus 6, a plus 5 times 1 over a minus 6, a plus 5, plus a minus 6, a plus 5 times 3 over a plus 5. That equals a minus 6, a plus 5 times 3 over a minus 6, a plus 5. Now in that first one, those a minus 6s cancel, a plus 5s cancel. Second one, a plus 5s cancel. Third one, a minus 6s cancel, a plus 5s cancel. So I'm left with 1 plus a minus 6 times 3, and that equals 3. I'm just going to move that 3 to the front, so that's 3 times a minus 6. So that's 1 plus 3a minus 18 equals 3, which is 3a minus 17 equals 3. Add that 17 over, 3a equals 20, divide by 3, a equals 20/3. Okay, let's do one more example. So this one, we have 1 over x plus 5 over x squared plus 2x, sorry, struggling, and 1 over 2x plus 2. We're going to factor that middle one, so that's x and x plus 2. Now my restrictions here are x cannot equal 0 and x cannot equal negative 2. Sorry, excuse me. Now my least common denominator is x and x minus 2. So it's whatever we just factored, that's your common denominator. We're going to multiply it to each of these. Put those over 1. So x plus 2 times 1 over x plus 2 times x plus 5 over x and x plus 2, x plus 2 times 1 over x plus 2. That first one, the x's cancel. Second one, x's cancel, x plus 2's cancel. Third one, x plus 2's cancel. So I'm left with x plus 2 plus x plus 5 equals x. So that's 2x plus 7 equals x. Subtract that 2x, you get 7 equals negative x. Switch the signs, x equals negative 7. Okay, we're going to save the last two. Remember to take the quiz, and I will see you guys when I see ya. Bye.